Let me start by addressing one or two of the errors of fact that have been made in this debate before I come on to the position of the Conservatives and the extraordinary parallel universe in which they are presently operating. I just want to draw to say to Jamie Green that it is an extraordinary definite. Jamie Green is not here, but I would say to him, if he was here, that it is extraordinary not to define workers' rights, human rights, environmental protections and the alleviation of the suffering of young children separated from their parents. These are apparently not important matters. I think that's the most extraordinary thing I've heard in this chamber in a very long time. These are not important matters. I simply cannot understand that, and if Jamie Green has an explanation for it, I would take it. Secondly, the allegation, no, sorry, Mr Finney did not participate in the debate, and I really have too much to do. The allegation that in some sense the SNP is not democratic, I also just want to stand on very firmly. Scotland is not, as we may have noticed, independent today. Therefore, we must have accepted the result of the 2014 referendum, which we did accept. What changed, of course, was what happened in 2016. Exactly. But even then, we made every possible effort to secure a compromise, and that was not accepted. So we have rigorously respected the result of the referendum. Well, the trouble is, the Scottish Conservatives have not. The Scottish Conservatives wish to make sure that the voice of the Scottish people is not heard, or rather selectively heard, and that is not acceptable. And finally, on the issue of the withdrawal bill does not get Brexit done. That is a very simple fact. It must be known to Mr Tompkins, who made the allegation. There's no end in sight, as Mr Cameron said. This is the end of what was meant to be the simple part of the process. I think David Davis called it that. The complicated part of the process is just about to start. And already the UK government has hobbled itself by limiting that to the end of this year. But it is not the end of the process. Now, I want to make one other point on fact before I start on the position of the Tories, and that is on the issue of the Independent Monitoring Authority, which has been raised by a couple of Labour members and by Murdo Fraser. There are three issues in this that need to be thought of. The first is appointments, and the fact that the Scottish government, there can be a veto from the UK government, but no veto from the Scottish government, is the inadequacy of the position, because that is where we are. That is where we are. Give both of us a veto, or give neither of us a veto. But don't give a veto to only one side of it. There's no need for a veto on either side. We can work together. I'm sorry, I'm not going to, because I have to address the errors of fact from Murdo Fraser. Errors of fact from Murdo Fraser, which will be addressed by me. Let me say, first of all, that there is absolutely no reason why there should not be the opportunity for the Scottish Government to nominate or to accept a nomination or to refuse a nomination. That would be normal. But Murdo Fraser's argument is particularly strange, because what it says is that the test of whether a matter is devolved or not is up to the UK government. It's not to do with the Scotland Act, it's to do with the UK government. So the UK government can decide what this person is to do and how it is to do it. And if that person is involved in devolved actions, it's up to the UK government to appoint them. That's a very, very slippery slope for devolution, and Murdo Fraser knows that. But no, I'm not giving way to Mr Fraser at all. So I'm sorry, it'd be best if you didn't waste your time and my time. And on the issue of appointments and the functions, it is important to recognise, as I think Mr Rowley recognised, that the powers of this body can be taken and given to another body without any consultation. So this is a serious set of circumstances. But now let me turn to the Tories in this debate. I actually want to congratulate Adam Tompkins on his tour de force performance. I have to say that I have a sort of rule of thumb in these matters. I always assess how close Mr Tompkins believes in what the Tories are doing by his performance. And usually, if he's calm and reasoned, then I think he is in agreement with the Tory position, and therefore there can be a constructive debate. The more hysterical he becomes, the less I think he is in sympathy. And boy, what a performance there was today. I have to say it was completely off the scale. And about halfway through it, I suddenly thought of, it just came into my mind unbidden, Richard Hannay in the 39 Steps, appearing, if you remember, at a free trade meeting held somewhere. There's a Union Jack in the background. And I had to look it up. While Mr Tompkins was talking, and there's a fantastic quote from it. Because Mr Tompkins was doing what Mr Hannay was doing. He had to make it up as he went along, and he got angrier and angrier. And he says in the book, I didn't do so badly when it came to my turn. I started to tell him the kind of glorious business I thought could be made in the empire if we really put our backs into it. And that is exactly what we heard. That's exactly what we heard from Mr. Tompkins. That's exactly what we heard. And there's another parallel too, because the 39 Steps is, of course, a book about a man on the run. And their performance, from Mr. Tompkins and his party, a man on the run and a party on the run. What a contrast it was with the calm, measured analysis from Bruce Crawford, who made every point clearly, every point that the committee agreed clearly, and rebutted by so doing every point for Mr. Tompkins. Because this bill does cut across the devolved settlement, as the committee says. This bill does raise questions about the rights of the devolved administrations to be involved in the implementation of international agreements, as the committee recognises. This bill does not resolve the dispute about appointments to the IMA, and it ignores the Seoul Convention, just as the committee has concluded. And this bill should not have the support of this Parliament, as the committee recommends, with the exception on that committee, of course, of Mr. Tompkins, Mr. Fraser and Mr. Burnett. What lies behind this bill? What lies behind the Brexit process? Because we should ask that question, given the seriousness of the choice that Scotland has to make. And what lies behind the hoarding of power at Westminster? Well, it's undoubtedly a distaste for devolution. It is the promotion of an image of the UK which is actually a century out of date, which brings us back to the 39 Steps, of course, published as a series in 1915. It is that out-of-date view of the reality of the world today which Brexit recognises and epitomises. But we on this side should welcome the way that the Tories have treated this debate today. I noticed somebody on Twitter called it gloating, because that's what it was. The 4 Tory speeches were gloating speeches. According to Murdo Fraser, the SNP has got it wrong. What he meant was the voters of Scotland have got it wrong. Because it was the voters of Scotland said very clearly, not just last December, but on every possible opportunity, said they do not want to leave the EU. And that's the key issue, because it is the Tories that have got it wrong. That Scotland is turning its face from the Tories. I was listening to Mr. Tompkins and thinking, nobody believes this anymore. Nobody believes the dire warnings, the manufactured attacks on the SNP in government, the lauding of ministers and management in another place, the Tories' support of each and every diminution and erosion of devolution, the Tories' grievance-driven agenda, their grievance-driven agenda, their grievance agenda. And do you know what their grievance is? Do you know what the Tory grievance is? Scotland no longer supports them. That's their grievance. And Scotland has had enough of the Tories. It's had enough of Adam Tompkins. It's had enough of him pretending to hold a position he doesn't hold. It's had enough of the ludicrous performance of Murdo Fraser. It's had enough of Jamie Green, who doesn't even understand the parliamentary process. It's enough of Scotland being told that we are too wee, too poor, too stupid to be a nation within Europe. It has enough of being spoken for, and as we hear then, enough of being spoken over. It's had enough of Brexit, and we should say that loudly and clearly as a parliament and a country today. I am grateful that the Liberal Democrats and the Greens and the Labour Party are supporting that position. Because no matter what other positions we take, the truth of the matter is Scotland has rejected Brexit. And those who espouse Brexit are also being rejected by Scotland. I ask you to support my motion.
Thank you very much. That concludes our debate on the European Union Withdrawal Agreement Bill. And the next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 20328 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Bureau, setting out a business programme. Could I call on the Minister to move this motion? Thank you very much. No member has indicated they wish to speak on the motion. Therefore, the question is that motion 20326 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are agreed. The next item is consideration of Business Motion 20327, also in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau, on the Stage 1 timetable of a bill. Could I call on the Minister to move this motion?
Moved, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much. And again, no member has indicated they wish to speak on this motion. Therefore, the question is that motion 20327 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are agreed. So we're going to turn to decision time in a few seconds. And the first question is that Amendment 20318.1 in the name of Adam Tompkins, which seeks to amend motion 20318 in the name of Michael Russell on the European Union Withdrawal Agreement Bill, be agreed. Are we all agreed? No. We're not agreed. We'll move to a vote, and members may cast their votes now. The result of the vote on amendment number 20318.1 in the name of Adam Tompkins is yes 29, no 92. There were no abstentions. The amendment is therefore not agreed. The final question is that motion 20318 in the name of Michael Russell on the European Union Withdrawal Agreement Bill be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not agreed. We'll move to a vote. Members may vote now. The result of the vote on motion 20318 in the name of Michael Russell is yes 92, no 29. There were no abstentions. The motion is therefore agreed. Now, members may wish to note that previously where the Parliament has voted to withhold consent on issues where the UK Parliament wishes to legislate on devolved issues, I have written to my counterparts in the other UK legislatures, and I intend to do so in this case following tonight's vote.